no fight to the end. Doesn't matter what the world.
Thanks for joining us today on WNTW 820 AM The Answer. Welcome to Cut to the Chase radio show. My name is Amanda Chase. I serve as your state senator in the 11th Senatorial District, which includes Chesterfield, Amelia, and Colonial Heights. I look forward to hosting this show each week as we discuss issues that are most important to our area and to our constituents. You can kind of think of this as a weekly town hall for our constituents. And much of what we're doing is we're taking the issues that are coming to our office. I have office hours every Tuesday and Thursday. And so we bring those issues to the table here on Cut to the Chase Radio and discuss those so that you can hear what's going on, the issues that are important to constituents. Well, I am thankful for the opportunity to reach more constituents through this radio town hall each week. And I want to get your feedback on each week's topic, and we're going to tell you how to do that in just a minute. Many of the topics that we will address on the show are issues, as I mentioned, that constituents bring to my attention. And we're going to talk about those each Thursday. So not just this Thursday, but every Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. to hear more about the issues that affect our district. Many of you may not know me. I'm a wife, mom of 4 school-age kids. I have 3 teenage sons and a 20-year-old daughter. I have a business background. I'm a proud Virginia Tech Hokie, and I graduated with a degree in business, double majoring in finance and management. And that's going to come in really handy today as we talk about our economy in Virginia and how to get things going again to help small business owners. So my husband and I both grew up in Chesterfield. We have called Chesterfield home for about 35 years. We've owned our own businesses over the years. Currently, we have a financial services business, and we are actually teaching our boys how to be entrepreneurs. That's right. They have a grass cutting business, and they've cut their 115th lawn this week. And so we understand home economics as well as small businesses' challenges. We're real people who are in touch with raising kids and making ends meet. And I am so thankful for the opportunity to serve as your state senator in the General Assembly here in Richmond. And along that line, I will also add, I am not a federal senator. I am actually a state senator. And I actually am thankful that unlike Congressman Brat, I do not have to go to Washington to do my job. I'm so thankful to be here in Richmond and close to home. So one thing I know for sure, whenever I was on the campaign trail, many of you are tired of out-of-touch politicians. Quite honestly, it's one of the main reasons that I ran. So as your state senator, I've done everything I can to stay in touch and keep open communications with you. Talking to constituents, as I mentioned earlier, I have regular office hours outside of our winter session. As you know, our session is actually basically in the winter months, typically January and February. We won't go into the complications of a short year and a long year. But we have regular office hours even out of session on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I've given my cell phone number to all the reporters out there so that you have access to me. So if something happens, they'll call me, and I'm try to freely talk to them. We have town halls and now this. So I welcome your feedback. If you have questions about today's topic, I'm going to invite you to call in today. Don't be shy. The number is this. I want you to get a pen down and take it down because I want somebody to call in today. It's 804-454-1366. Now, if you don't feel comfortable going on the air, I understand those of you who are shy. You can email your question to info@amandachaseforsenate.com, and we're going to do our best to answer your question on the show. So let's get started with today's show. And I will add, by the way, that on each week's show, we're going to have 2 experts. And today our guests include Congressman Brat and Heather Cordasco, who is a candidate for the House of Delegates in the Williamsburg area. We're going to be discussing today small business in Virginia and initiatives at the federal and state level. Now, many of you are at work right now, and maybe you're listening to this later. But in Virginia, our GDP growth is at about 0%. Don't let the governor fool you with his PR. Virginia used to be the number 1 state in the country for doing business, according to a CNBC poll that started way back in 2007. Do you know where we are now? Number 13. I don't know about you, but I like to be number 1. And so I want to work together with the constituents and business owners to figure out how can we get back to being number one. Well, first of all, we must eliminate the old ways of corporate welfare from our budget. The government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. That's just my opinion. It's why I was the one no vote in the Senate on our budget. And I certainly respect those who voted for it. It's probably been one of the best budgets we've had to vote on in years. But it still had some corporate welfare in there, and I just feel like, in my opinion, that's not the way to go. We need to reform programs like SWAM, which is a small women and minority business program, which was intended to help minorities. It's actually hurting these groups, and it needs review. We also need to implement something we called zero-based budgeting. A $105 billion budget was passed by the General Assembly this year, and as I mentioned earlier, I voted against it. And here's why. Our spending continues to increase by about 6 to 8% annually. And I do emphasize the word annually. Yet we haven't had an actual tax cut since Governor Jim Gilmore's tax, which was first implemented in 1997. So we're going to talk today about some opportunities that we can have to actually cut some taxes. I also want to add, just as an aside, during the primary, I actually signed the American for Taxpayer Reform Pledge, and I'm going to continue to vote against all the tax increases and fees that come before us in the General Assembly. We need to free up the markets, free up entrepreneurs and small businesses by eliminating or reforming the corporate income tax, personal income tax, capital gains tax, the bank franchise tax. If you've noticed, if you work downtown, there's not as many headquartered banks down there anymore, and I think a lot of it has to do with that tax. And then also the B-poll tax. By responsibly phasing these taxes out, I feel like corporations are going to come to Virginia and our economy is going to grow again. So, it's just a different philosophy. I think we need to do everything we can across the board to help our small business owners, but I still think the government is in the business too much of these corporate income economic packages. That sounds really good. If you say, I'm a Republican and I support small business and I'm going to dole out taxpayer money to small businesses to help them with different needs. My thing is that actually puts the government in the role of picking winners and losers instead of cutting these taxes and then having those cut across the board. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I also want to talk today about a referendum that's going to be on the ballot this year about right to work. This November, in addition to voting for president, we have a ballot initiative on a right to work amendment. Now you may say, what does that mean, right to work, right? What does that mean? Virginia's right to work statute bans employers from requiring union membership. Now, I don't like being told what to do. I know you don't either. But supporters of the right to work constitutional amendment argue that a constitutional amendment is necessary in Virginia because the current right to work statute can be easily undone or amended by future general assemblies or rogue judges. There are currently 26 right-to-work states in the U.S., and 8 of these have constitutional right-to-work amendments. In fact, Virginia was the 5th state in the country to become a right-to-work state when the state's law went into effect on January 12, 1947. Now, a constitutional amendment must be passed by a majority vote in two consecutive sessions of the General Assembly, we'll say that right, Virginia General Assembly, to be placed on the ballot. Now, I can read that section to you if you really want to hear it. It's in Section 11A to Article 1 of the Virginia Constitution, and we're going to add some language here. And it's Section 11A, and we might read it when we get back. I think we've got about 1 minute to go. But it says, any agreement or combination between any employer, and any labor union or labor organization whereby non-members of the union or organization are denied the right to work for the employer, or whereby such membership is made a condition of employment or continuation of employment by such employer, or whereby, these attorneys, they like to throw the wherebys in there, Any such union or organization acquires an employment monopoly in any enterprise, is against public policy, and constitutes an illegal combination or conspiracy and is void. So once again, we want the power to the people. We need to look out for our ability to have the right to work in Virginia. It keeps we have more jobs because we're keeping the cost of doing business lower. Now, when we come back, we're going to be talking to Heather Cordasco, who is actually on the line with us right now, and I can't wait to tell you all about Heather when we get back. She served on the Williamsburg James City County School Board from 2012 to 2015, and she's going to be on the line in just a few minutes.
And using geometry, I mean, it becomes very applicable. And then it really does become a partnership between education and businesses, which benefits everybody.
Now, Heather, you have 3 children as well. What are the ages of your kids?
26, 24, and 20.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm a mom of 4 kids, as you well know, and what's the number one question that kids ask when they're in school?
What am I supposed to do when I grow up?
Right. What am I supposed to do when I grow up? And what's the second question they ask? Why is it what I'm learning? Why am I learning this? And is it going to help me when I get older, right?
Yes, exactly right. And, we actually, our youngest is a transfer student beginning in Bridgewater very soon. And he was one that, really wasn't sure. And so we told him, I actually strongly encouraged, Reed insisted that he take an intro to engineering course because he's very good with his hands. And he liked some of it, he didn't like some of it, but he discovered that he loves cars. He's already replaced an engine in a car. So he's decided that he wants to get a business degree, get additional training in taking care of cars, and open his own business. And that is exactly what you want. You want them to look at what they're good at and figure out how they're going to make it work. And that's one of the things that I always encourage.
Well, Heather, I noticed that you've made small business issues part of your platform. Can you tell us what has been negatively impacting businesses in that district that you hope to address?
Well, certainly regulations. I was listening to you, and certainly BPOL is something that is a very hot button issue, but it is something that's restrictive. And I think sometimes people forget how far reaching that tax can be, that it's not necessarily just big machinery. Certainly regulations, permitting, and other things. For instance, we have an area that does not have a whole lot of business in it, and they wanted to open a barber shop. Now, this area is an area where most people would live within walking distance of that barber shop. But the requirement was that they come up with 6 parking places. And there was no issue with parking. There was no ticketing or anything that occurred. It was just a zoning regulation that was really a barrier, and this shop ended up not even opening because of it. So really common sense things, not looking at things in a blanket, but doing something on a case-by-case basis and doing things that make sense. Of course, any employer that has anybody over 49 employees, they have a problem with the Affordable Care Act regulations. That's a big deal. And significantly here in my area with Busch Gardens, they were hit by the over 30 hours requirement.
Heather, we've got about 5 seconds left, so I want to thank you so much for being on our show today. Heather Cordasco, if you live in the Williamsburg area, we encourage you to get out and support her. WNTW 820 AM, The Answer. This is Senator Amanda Chase with Cut to the Chase Radio, and I am so excited to have our next guest here in the studio, Congressman Dave Brat. Congressman Dave Brat, many of you, everybody knows Congressman Dave Brat, but I just thought it would be interesting to remind you things that he's done and accomplished, and he's actually served 2 Virginia governors on their economic advisory boards, providing them with critical economic forecasts to help manage the Commonwealth. He served as president of the Virginia Association of Economics. He has a Master's of Divinity degree from Princeton Theological Seminary and a PhD in economics from American University. He's worked for the World Bank assisting developing world economies and in the private sector for Arthur Andersen before he became a professor of Economics and chairman of the Economics Department at Randolph-Macon. As many of you know, he and his wife, Laura, have 2 kids, and they live in the Henrico area. I would also like to mention that Congressman Brat is a member of the House Budget Committee, Education and the Workforce Committee, and Small Business Committee. Dave, it's great to have you on the show today.
Hey, it's great to be on with a senator. Wow. Thank you for having me on, Amanda.
There's so many fun things that we could talk about today, and we plan on covering those too.
Whatever you want.
First of all, congratulations on recently publishing your new book, and I have it here in the audience. I wish y'all could see it. American Underdog, Proof That Principles Matter. And I've started reading this, and it's a great read, and I agree with everything you've said so far.
That's nice of you. I had fun. I had a couple of books in the works as a professor for 18 years. I wanted to put down some of the stuff from the race and then get into the kind of the long trajectory of what made us a great country. And so I tried to capture that in the book. And so basically, 3 pillars: Judeo-Christian tradition, and then the rule of law, and then free market economics, in order, right? And the fact that it happened that way in history, in order, makes a difference. These days, a lot of people think you could just create policy out of thin air, right? You don't need a culture. You don't need to be ethical. You don't need to have a work ethic. You can just do it with policy, and that's nonsense. And so the book tries to lay out a strong case that you need all 3, and right now the election coming up is going to be crucial because the left is opposed to all 3, right? Judeo-Christian tradition, they're fighting in the K-12. Higher ed is hostile. If you go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton philosophy seminar, it's under assault. The rule of law, the left right now is giving our police, sheriffs a hard time. On our side, we love, respect them, stand up for them. And then free market economics, I don't think the left knows what it is. So we'll get into all that today. But we're losing the free market system, and that's why we're growing at 1% right now. And we better get our act back in order. In this election, we need people to get active and get out there and help us line things up.
Now, Dave, I know that you're always in the district because you and I run into each other a lot all over the district. And both of our top issues is business, and that's probably top of the list because if you don't have a job, you can't feed your family.
Right.
And so we need strong businesses. And I know one of the number one things that we hear from small businesses, and you and I met jointly with the constituent in our district that was having an issue with federal regulation basically coming down and choking out their business. And, we're trying to, you and I are both, I at the state level, you at the federal level, trying to push back on all these regulations. And do you want to talk a little bit about the amount of regulations?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Amanda's given me a nice little prop. One of my friends, Senator Mike Lee, showed the executive overreach. We have all heard about this, right? President Obama making laws out of all the agencies instead of through Congress. And it's pretty interesting. Back in 2013, Congress had 5 inches of law, and the executive branch had 11 feet. So that's one way of visualizing the problem that's new, and most people aren't aware of that. And then the small business guys, it began with Obamacare, right? So it's supposed to be the Affordable Care Act. And now most economic studies show the average Virginia family has about $400 or $500 on the side to pay for a catastrophic event or bill. Well, the deductible is anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. No one has that. So you got a premium product that no one can afford to use. And then the health insurance premiums are going up by anywhere 15 to 25%, and that's being conservative. I could give some crazy numbers. And then the whole range, just the assault on regulation from the franchisee rule, the fiduciary rule, the overtime rule. It's just nonstop. The farmers have to fence in every bass pond, every stream on their property. Waters of the USA, the IRS targeting. And so at the federal level, my job is to get that out of our way. And so I'm fighting for that. And then the state and the Commonwealth is much better run, thanks to folks like you and the localities. In Chesterfield, great leadership. Henrico County, great leadership. My counties are super. And so our founders had it right? We want the enumerated powers. The federal government has a limited power, and the rest of it belongs to the states and the localities and to the people. And so we got to get back on track. And I see we're heading toward a break, but we'll hit more on this after.
Absolutely. We're going to be back in about 15 seconds. We're going to talk about health savings accounts. And Dave has introduced a new bill to expand HSAs. And we're going to learn more about that bill in just a minute.
Lately, I've been losing losing sleep, dreaming about the things that we could be. But baby, I've been praying hard. Said no more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars.
Hey, we're losing sleep and praying hard right here with Congressman Dave Brat, Senator Amanda Chase. Thanks for joining us today on WNTW 820 AM The Answer. We are on Cut to the Chase Radio today. And in the office, in our radio studio today, we have Congressman Dave Brat. So glad to have him here. And we are talking today about a bill that he's just introduced that would expand HSAs, otherwise known as health savings accounts. Dave, can you tell us a little bit about the bill?
Yeah, well, it kind of bounces off the segment we were just talking about Obamacare, and the average family has $400 or $500 max to pay for out-of-pocket catastrophes. If your car breaks down, your refrigerator breaks down, your kid breaks their arm or whatever. And with Obamacare, it's a rich policy, right? It's gold-plated, but the deductible is anywhere a few $1,000s just to get started using it. So a lot of the poor can't use the product. And so we wanted to put together HSAs for savings plans for, college education. It could be used for a lot of things, but primarily this was in our mind because when you were talking about small business in your last segment, and small business, it's amazing, right? If you knock doors like you and I do, you know who small business people are.
That's right.
And the media doesn't have a clue, and politicians and the elites in D.C. they think that business is bad guys. Business is America, right? So everybody out there is in small business. Most people are in small business. They've been trying to give full health care to their employees, who they regard as their family for the most part. And that started changing, right? About 5 years ago, they had to go down to offering maybe 50%, paying 50% of health care. And then a couple years ago, the economy's got no wind behind it, and so they backed it down to maybe 20%. And now lately, a lot of small business people are saying, I'm sorry, I can't give you health benefits. We're going to take away the benefits, and I'll give you $2,000 cash, right, in wages or salary, or to try and pick up and do the best you can for your family. And so the health savings account is just a way to help you, save tax free and have a little bit of a buffer for your family over the long run to start putting money aside in case you have a bad day. And so that's the big deal, but it's very hard, heavy sledding. We need to get rid of Obamacare and replace it with more of a privatized system like this that does rely on that, right? Mm-hmm. We want a basic safety net for the poor. We all believe in that common moral concern for our neighbor, but there's a smart way to do it. And right now the country's going bankrupt, and so I'll talk about the budget in a minute if you want to get into some of those numbers, and I'll show you why it's key that we have to change some of these.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just on that, before we switch over to the budget, as I was going, just even my friends and who are small business owners, they're working 90 hours a week at least, barely making a profit at all. And then they're saying, if I have a kid that gets sick, I have to it's a tax. Because you're not even getting really a benefit from it unless you have something catastrophic happen to you. So it's, in my opinion, just a tax. And so what do? You still have to go to the doctor. So some people are opting to do the penalty and go that direction, but once again, that's just a tax. It's a disaster. So I'm so thankful that you've come up with an option here for us, because we certainly need the help with it. So let's talk about the budget. Now, I can talk about the state budget, and I can tell you that it's been in the news a lot lately. We had actually a $266 million general fund revenue shortfall. We've had 1.7% actual growth, and it was actually forecasted at 3.2%. So that's kind of a uh-oh moment. And so now we're kind of scrambling at the state level, because we made all these promises to state workers and teachers to get a raise. And, the state was only going to pick up the first year, and then it was going to be basically an unfunded mandate to the localities. By the way, I voted no against the budget. I was the one no vote in the Senate on this. And so let's talk about budgets. Yep. What are we doing?
Yeah, well, you're doing way better than we are, right? And so
we at least have a balanced budget.
You have to balance by law. Budget, right? And we don't. And so we got some big bag numbers coming. We met with the realtors this morning, a couple hundred folks, and talk about the economic outlook. And everybody, it was great. We had a pretty well-balanced panel. But then a lot of business people out, and they said rank the economy from 1 to 10. How's the economy doing? And I was kind of the pessimist up on the panel. But then most of the people, on a scale of 1 to 10, most of the people weighed in at 3, 4, or 5, right, out of 10. There were no 10s, no 9s. I think there was 1 8, 1 or 2 7s. And so just on a simple scale, we're not doing well, right? 2 quarters ago, we grew at 0.7% of the economy. Last quarter, we grew at 1.2%. And the middle class is just ticked off right now, right? On both sides of the aisle. It's kind of funny, the new politics, the outsiders, Trump and Rand Paul and Cruz and Ben Carson and all the outsiders, and then Bernie on the Democrat side. The people haven't had a wage rate increase in 30 years. Wages have been flat for 30 years. Average family income in Virginia is down $4,000 over the last 7 years. And the federal government is causing a lot of that. We're just inflicting pain and we're slowing down economic performance. And so we need to get it out of the way. But Obama keeps taking unilateral action, right? He's just putting more and more regulation in place through his executive power. And the Congress isn't fighting back. And so that's the major problem. The budget right now, I came in 2 years ago on the Cromnibus. Leadership on both sides got together. People think it's right wing versus left wing and all this kind of stuff. No, it's not true. The power up in D.C. and the real action is in the middle. And both sides in the middle want to increase spending tremendously. And so in Cromnibus, we busted the budget. I said, I think we're going to do the same thing next year. So last year we had the omnibus. Paul Ryan himself, right? Now the speaker said it's a crap sandwich. And we voted yes for crap sandwich. I voted no like you, right? I said this thing's a disaster. I also voted no on the Iran deal that's coming due right now, right? I've been voting no on bad policy. And you stick out like a sore thumb if you take a stand on principle. And so now this year, more of the same, right? We're $19 trillion in debt and $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. And I'll just get to the bottom line. What that means is, and this affects state government. It'll affect state and localities big time. In 10 years, all federal revenues coming into the federal coffers will go only to mandatory spending programs, which are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, et cetera. Right? All of that driven by increasing federal health care costs. And so what's that mean? That means in 10 years, how much money is left for the military? Zero. Education? Zero. Transportation? Zero. Funds back down to the states? Zero. And then when you have to tighten the belt, what happens to the money the localities want coming from the states? They're going to have to tighten the buckle. And so bad news on the economic front coming. Seniors are going to get their benefits clipped if we don't fix these systems, and everyone's scared to talk about it. So that's a little glimpse of what's coming our way.
Stay tuned, and there's hope.
There is
coming
hope.
Up in 1 minute.
There's hope. I'll give you the good news in a little bit if I can think of it.
So stay tuned. I'm Senator Amanda Chase on Cut to the Chase Radio here with Congressman Dave Brat on our final segment, our last 3 minutes, Dave. It's been a fast hour here.
It's been fun. It's awesome.
So we got to leave people on a happy note. And, and I would say your race was a miracle.
Yep.
And, I feel like you and I are both people of prayer. We're both people of faith.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, when everything else around us is falling down around us, I'm so thankful that I know you're there in D.C. and that you're a man of faith and that you believe in prayer, because quite honestly, I think that's where we are right now. I mean, we need people across this nation to get on their knees and pray for our country, because we are at a crossroads, and I think everybody's feeling it.
Yep.
And when we go and we see people and they're like, they want us to fix it. And I think if we get enough people in office who are not afraid to challenge status quo, and enough of us get in there, we are making a difference.
Right.
I mean, just by being vocal and talking to the media and talking to people.
Yep.
So I just want to say thank you for standing in the gap and going up there to do what you said you were going to do, which was to represent the people. And you've done a great job doing that. So I really want to thank you. And I'm just going to offer the last thoughts to you. Yep. What are your thoughts on how to solve this?
Oh, it's been an honor. And I mean, it's easy to get cynical when you watch the news every night and it's all negative and the economic charts look negative and everything. But the good news is, and I think you see it, when you knock doors and when I go through my counties in Virginia, right? I mean, that's the blessing part, right? You get to meet with people. So I still have utter faith in the American people. And part of the problem with the American people is they are good, right? And they think we're going to come through for them. And it's usually the opposite. Usually the elites
true.
up in D.C. are messing it up. In New York and the financial markets are messing it up. In the long run, central planners are messing it up. But the one thing you can count on in this country is the American people will wake up at the last minute, and their judgment will come through. Their moral clarity has always come through, and I still have faith that that is coming. I pray every day for it. I pray for leadership. And for people like you, I'm equally impressed with everything you're doing. You stand up and vote your conscience and don't just go along and get along, right? And we need more people like you at the state level and local level. And in our areas, we do have some good quality people at the local levels. And my people across, I got 10 counties, and I just picked up 3 new rural counties, Powhatan, Amelia, Nottoway. What a bunch of great people, right? I'm just starting to get to know them.
Absolutely.
And it's a pleasure to be able to serve in this role. I always dreamed of putting economics and ethics together, and now I got a chance to live it out. So we'll see how we can do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Congressman Dave Brat.
Thank you, Amanda, Senator.
Stay tuned next week, AM 820 WNTW, The Answer. Next week, we're going to try to start a 4-week series on business and how we address the failing issues that we have. We're going to bring on different business owners, different business leaders, and we are going to solve this problem.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for being on the show today,
awesome.
Dave.
Thanks for
Great
having
you.
Anytime.
Awesome.